my name is Rashu. I am the Student Advisory Board President-elect, and today I have with me Julie.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Julie Gunawarden, and I am the Senior Advisor to the Chancellor at the University of Texas System, and I'm also the Chief Talent and Innovation Officer.
Yeah, well, Julie, we're so honored to have you here today. I mean, it's such a pleasure to be able to speak to you, and also for everyone watching this to be able to hear your insights and learn more about you and your experiences. We know that you currently work at the University of Texas System, serving as a senior advisor to the chancellor and the chief talent and innovation officer. For you and your experience, what are some key early career experiences that help you prepare for this unique role?
That's an interesting question because I have a very non-traditional job at UT System, and UT System is the organization that has the privilege of working across and with 14 institutions in the UT family. So my non-traditional career path prepared me for my non-traditional job. So what I would say is I'll tell you a little bit about my career and some key milestones and things maybe that you couldn't get from a piece of paper or a Google search. I started my career in tech consulting and really liked that work. Was happily working for a very large consulting firm when one day the smartest partners in the firm, at least in my mind, decided that they were going to leave and start their own company. I thought, that's interesting. And what was even more surprising, I was in my 20s at the time, they wanted me to go with them. And I wish I could tell you that I had some enormously sophisticated plan about all this. I hadn't really, up until that point, considered being an entrepreneur. But my logic went something like this. I don't know that an opportunity like this will present itself again, but I'm pretty sure that I can get another job like I have. I was engaged to my now husband, and we didn't have anything, so there was nothing to lose. With that, I went off to TSC, and what I learned about myself is I love entrepreneurship. I love building and creating things. I did have one assignment there that I think was a note, and I maybe important for folks to think about is it is the assignment I can say that I found the most difficult and that I didn't want that has stood me in the greatest stead in my career, which was we founded at TSC and we were growing very quickly. And so we made this decision that someone would have to have the authority to sort of do a technical interview and a business interview and a fit interview and make a hiring decision. I was given that job, and it was not a job that I wanted particularly, but what it meant is I interviewed people all day long. I wouldn't recommend this, but my personal record was 47 minutes from hi to do you want to work here? It was an important job because we were hiring people to do consulting, and so they were going right out to the client site. So every hiring decision was sort of a bet your company decision. I learned so much about people. I learned so much about putting infrastructure in place on the fly. I just learned a lot. After TSC went public and we had a secondary offering, I decided to go and co-found a software company with my husband. And actually, some of those original partners who recruited me to come to TSC actually were the first investors in our company.
Wow,
and so we
awesome.
had a software company, which we sold. Then I decided I would take a little break and reflect. And something you might not easily pick up about me is that we have 3 children. So we have a son, and then we have twin daughters. And all the kids are doing great. But the girls were born 3 months early, one at a pound, one at 2 pounds, with 7 doctors in the delivery room. And that would be really, really bad today. And 20 plus years ago, it was catastrophic. They are doing fantastic. They're both in grad school, actually, at UT here in Austin.
Oh, wow.
And have absolutely defied the odds. And in part, because we were able to provide a lot of resource because TSC had gone public. And so one of the things that presented itself was Purdue, where I'd gone to school, asked me if I would come back and help professors who wanted to start companies. I thought it was a way to give back, to start to move innovations out of the university to the marketplace because my family had benefited from innovation. I went and then I fell in love with that work and did some consulting for someone that led to me being recruited here to UT. So initially I came to UT System to do innovation, entrepreneurship kind of work. And then we had some changes in leadership and I was asked to take on the talent and HR organization on an interim basis. And I remind people the reward for good work is more work. And so it was decided to be a good idea if I did both those jobs. And then our current chancellor came, and I was working closely with him on some different projects, and he decided to create this position of senior advisor. That's how I came to this non-traditional role, but all those things in my history, innovation, entrepreneurship, understanding of technology, and particularly that people assignment of hiring have stood me in good stead and sort of wove the fabric that brought me to where I am today.
I love to see the diversity in all the experiences you've kind of had throughout your career experiences, but also how everything's kind of also come full circle with the partners you worked with being your first investors and now you doing HR and talent here on campus. I think it's all honestly very, very inspiring, and I'm very happy to hear about that. I know you might also know that our theme for International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. So can you actually share a story about how you chose to challenge, specifically gender bias or inequality in your professional life?
So I'm a lot older than the audience, obviously. And one thing I would just sort of try to level set is that when I went into IT consulting, women kind of didn't do that. So I spent most of my early career being the only woman in the room. Just showing up changed the dynamic a lot. But the one example that really sticks out in my head is when we raised the money for Cantilever, my husband was the technologist and I was sort of the business head. And so I was the CEO and he was the CTO. The year that we raised the venture capital for Cantilever, in the country that year, the data I was given was that there were 14 startups across the country. I mean, pure startups, ground up, that were led by women that were funded. And of those, only 3 were not in healthcare. And we weren't in healthcare. That's when I started to understand that doing what I wanted was kind of anomalous. I would also encourage people who may be listening to this conversation to think about challenging themselves internally, right? So challenging gender bias can be an external thing. It can also be an internal thing. And sometimes I think, particularly for women, we tend to take ourselves out of the game before the game starts. And if we're not perfect, we don't have every qualification, we don't go for it. There's a lot of research that says women internally attribute and men tend to externally attribute. When you're challenging bias, there will be an external component to it, but there will be an internal component. And getting comfortable enough with being uncomfortable is an important trait to groom in yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I feel like also representation is so important too. And to also try and battle that like internal conflict that's going on is like if you see people around you who look like you, I feel like personally that makes me more confident as well being in that situation. So I totally agree with you there. And I know you also mentioned that you have 2 twin daughters, which is incredible. And I'm glad to hear they're doing well. For your daughters and for other recent graduates and current students, what would you recommend to them, or what are some skills that you would say are ones that you view as being essential in the future of work? And how can these skills be developed?
Yeah, so I've sort of had a ringside seat for the recent graduate, early career professional COVID impact in my life. My son, who's 27, started a new job in March of 2020. And then my daughters were graduates from college in 2020. And let's just say that their plans were diverted. But I used to work for a fellow who said, in chaos, there is opportunity. What happened is it opened my girls' minds to the opportunity of going to graduate school. And that's been an enormously positive experience for them. I remind people to every cloud has a silver lining. Now, more specifically about what recent graduates can do and need to do in this sort of climate, we're doing a lot of work on this at UT System about the future of work. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and a lot of time looking at a lot of data. And what's very clear to me is regardless of discipline, early career people are going to have to be generally comfortable with technology. I'm not saying you have to be a programmer, but that there are tools of the trade that are important that you have mastered. And there is going to be an importance in being comfortable with data generally and understanding the story that the data is telling you. Now, having said all that, I think the other thing that you are learning is grace under fire. And that is an amazingly important attribute to have over the arc of your career. I tell my own children it is really easy to look good when things are going your way. But the measure of a person is how you behave when they are not. This generation is getting a first class education in that. And I guess the last comment I would make on this topic is that I think it is skills that will help you get a job and your ability to articulate to a potential employer what you can do. But it is your judgment and your humanity that will get you promoted and advance your career. And I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah, no, I love all of those. And I think those are all very important qualities that we should also be very cognizant and aware of to make sure, especially during our time on campus, stuff that we're trying to pick up, learn from our professors, learn from our classes and organizations that we're a part of. And I know you mentioned that you are an entrepreneur yourself, so which is an experience that definitely can often be ripe with a lot of failure. How do you view failure, and how do you recommend that we as students respond to them?
I think failure is really hard, and I think it's particularly hard for your generation because you're living your lives out loud. Everything's on social media. It's all so public. I think that that makes it harder. And one of the mistakes that I made early on was that I thought successful people didn't have setbacks. Because these people would come to campus when I was in your position and they would talk, it just looked like this smooth arc going from one success to another. And at least in my own life, there have been setbacks. There have been people who didn't fund me. There have been promotions I didn't get. There have things that have not worked out well. And what I've come to understand is the most successful people I know have a lot of failures in their life. They just keep going. Sometimes a failure or a no is the world telling you to try harder. I think it is important to understand, particularly if you're going to commit to a career in entrepreneurship and innovation, that there's a reason that people are so well rewarded when an entrepreneurial venture works, and it's not because everyone can do it. And what I tell my own colleagues in innovation at UT System is it's the office of innovation. It's not the office of we've done this before and we know what we're doing. And so it just gets a little messy. So you have to be able to be comfortable with those dynamics.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I feel like failure, as you mentioned, is something that isn't often talked about or even encouraged to try. Like, failure is okay, and it's not really said in like society that failure is something that's okay. But I feel like entrepreneurs are ones that also view failure as being different and as like not a step back, but rather a step forward to like getting to where you need. So I love that. And I also read up a little bit about you. And so from learning about you, I understood that you are one who likes to give back to the community and help others as much as you can. How do you find ways to celebrate and encourage other women's experiences, their achievements, and their goals?
Hands down, one of the best parts of my job, which is helping people see a future for themselves that they couldn't imagine. You made a comment earlier about I look for people who look like me. For me, I always felt like nobody looked like me because I'm a first generation American. I have parents who came here with $500. My dad's from Sri Lanka. My mother's Australian. People may not know this, but Australia had an all-white policy until the 70s. So a condition of their marriage was that they had to leave the country. Everything I have in my life is because of public education and immigration. When you get sort of formed in that kind of crucible, I think it helps you see how important someone giving a helping hand can be. How that represents in my life is I try to make it my mantra to never start a meeting in any other way other than saying, how can I help you? And what I always tell people is I can't always help, but my promise to you is that I will always try. The other thing that I think is really important when we're helping and advancing women and diverse peoples is I always ask people this question: tell me the perfect life that you imagine for yourself, and then now let's work backwards. For some people, that perfect life might be being an investment banker on Wall Street. For the person who wants to be an entrepreneur in Austin, how they're going to build that life is going to look really different, and the experiences they're going to seek and need are going to be different than the person who wants to go to Wall Street. That's how I try to live my life.
That's incredible. And thank you for approaching situations that way, because I feel like especially for students like us coming into situations and talking to executives, leadership, it can be intimidating sometimes. So you just saying, hey, how can I help you, is something that I think is a very great way to approach situations, because it makes the other person very comfortable as well, and also shows that you're so willing to support and help them, which I think is incredible. Kind of on that note, I know that hundreds of students will be watching this video from UT. Looking back, what do you wish you would have known as a college student, and what advice would you give to them?
One comment I want to make, and I want to thank you and everyone who works at Kendra's Institute, is that you've taken the first step, which is you're availing yourself of resources. If you're listening to this, those resources weren't so available when I graduated. And so I would say use everything you can. Let every person help you. I've never gone to a meeting, an interview, a trip where I haven't learned something. What I really wish I could say to my 21-year-old self is you don't have to be terrified every living, breathing second that you're going to get it wrong, that you're not going to measure up, that you're not going to be successful. What I would wish I could say to myself at that age is, yeah, you're going to mess some stuff up. It's not going to kill you. You're going to pick yourself up. You're going to do some really stupid things. You're going to say some really stupid things, but you will learn and grow from them. And in the end, it's going to be okay. The only time I've really made mistakes is when I haven't followed my heart and my gut. What I wish for everyone on this phone call is the successes I have enjoyed, the interesting things that I have gotten to do are so far beyond my wildest imaginings, right? If you had said to me, oh, don't worry about this, you'll get to be the one non-physician on the board of directors for the American Medical Association. Don't worry about that terrible meeting you just had. You're going to be an advisor to the Secretary of Commerce on innovation entrepreneurship. I think for most people here, your lives are going to just exceed maybe what you can even see or think of now. And that's certainly what I wish for you. And for me, it has been coupled with this enormous privilege of having a family that I'm just enjoy and I'm so proud of. What I would say to those of you that are listening that are feeling a little unsure, when you look at people like me and maybe think we always had it together all the time, so not true. So just relax a little bit and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, wow, that's so refreshing to hear, especially because everyone that's probably watching this is most likely a UT student. So I feel like as students, we definitely put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but it's so refreshing to hear that it'll end up okay. Thank you again, Julie, so much. It was such a pleasure getting to speak with you today and getting to learn more about you, your experiences, and thank you for the advice and all the knowledge you shared with us, as well as helping us celebrate International Women's Day. I really hope we can see you continue to serve in the University of Texas system, and can't wait to see everything that you accomplish and continue to achieve.
Thank you. It was my pleasure and privilege to be here today.